Hey, everybody. Tonight we're going to debate, is Steven Crowder innocent? And before we get into our intro statements, we are going to review some footage that's relevant to the discussion. So, Grace, you're ready with your screen share?
Yep, give me 1 second. Do you see that?
Yep, we can see that.
I see it.
All right. Can you hear it? I just played a little bit of it. Or can you hear
I
it?
didn't hear anything yet. No. Can you try again? No, we don't have the audio. So, if you go into the screen share and go down to the audio, when you
Oh, I
share
see, I
your
see.
screen,
I got it. I got it. Hang on. Sorry about that.
that's okay.
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel. You are not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There's no groceries. I'd be happy.
Steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes. How do you man? How do you man receive love and respect? No. How does a man No, you're not taking the car.
Steven,
You're not taking the car.
Steven,
You are not
then I
taking
will ask someone to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
the car. Right?
It's not correct, Steven.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Steven, I can't.
Feeling some constraints?
Steven.
Like, I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Steven,
Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be
Steven.
back when I'm back?
Steven,
The only way out of it is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
we are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
Steven,
Yeah. There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
Hillary,
Steven?
you give up so easily.
I'm
I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it, you go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife.
As a
I said as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to you. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves.
I need to
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just.
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? No, you take that in.
Alrighty. So, all right, there we go. Now I'm back in. So, with that context in play there, if there isn't any other footage for us to review, we will kick it into our intro statements here. So, we'll kick it over to Grace to start, I think, there.
Okay, sure. Abuse is an accusation that our society loves to hurl against men. You can hear it in their voice when they say it. Abuse. He's an abuser. He's an abusive husband. And who is the ultimate victim of this abuse? A pregnant woman. This entire video is the perfect setup to take a man down. I think something important for this debate is defining what abuse is. The definition of abuse is to use something to bad effect or for bad purpose, to misuse something. And within relationships, abuse is generally considered to mean treating either another person with violence, cruelty, harm, or force. Holding someone accountable is not abuse. An employer telling his employee to do better, to be worthy to work for him, is not abuse. Telling someone that they need to have discipline and respect is not abuse. A parent telling their kid to do better in school or in sports is not abuse. Getting frustrated and raising your voice is not abuse. None of those qualify as treating another person with violence, cruelty, harm, or force. And nobody should bat an eye if anybody, male or female, says these kinds of things. Nobody should be concerned if somebody asks another person to be disciplined and respectful. But when a man corrects a woman, even though our society says they believe that men and women are equal and should be given equal treatment, suddenly the man is the abuser and the wife is the victim. Hillary Crowder signed up for Steven Crowder. She freely married him. No one doubts that he is a driven, intense, engaged man. He drives his employees hard. He drives himself hard. But when his drive and his focus is turned on his wife, and he also wants her to live up to the promises she freely made him to support him and to do her wifely duties, as they both agreed as Christians, he's deemed an abuser. I think the real question here is whether a woman can fail as a wife. Is it part of patriarchal oppression of women to say that there are obligations and responsibilities involved in being a wife? Can you just walk away from a commitment that you made to a man freely for life with no consequences just because it isn't working for you anymore? I don't think men are given that choice. Women need to be held accountable. Can it be too harsh? Yes. Can women and men get themselves into situations where they're too far over their head with marriage and kids and everything else? Yes. But both men and women need to be honest when they get into that kind of situation and not blame the other partner for emotional abuse. It shouldn't be allowed for a woman to go nuclear on her husband because our society gives that option to women as an easy out. When you get overwhelmed, when you're failing and you can't handle the guilt that you feel from failing, you just blame your husband and you go nuclear on him. I think in essence, we can either look at this situation one of two ways. You take the video on its own and you see a frustrated man trying to hold his wife accountable for responsibilities that she agreed to and her refusing to listen to him and walking out. If you take this video in the full context of the situation, you see a woman who checked out from this relationship months ago, wound her husband up at his most vulnerable moment before a major surgery, saved a clip for 2 years, and after he told his audience about their divorce because it was increasingly becoming public and was going to be used against him, dropped that clip to a scumbag journalist to try to destroy her husband's name. Either way, he's the innocent one and she is not. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your opening statement there, Grace. So over to you, Ben. You got 8 minutes left there for your opening statement. Thanks for being here.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. I don't have so much a prepared speech as what I want to point out here, and it takes a few viewings to see, but there are major things that are missed in when this narrative is told, sympathetic to the wife here. The first and major one is that 4 days after this Nest video occurred, Steven Crowder went in for elective surgery. Now, elective surgery just means non-emergency surgery. The surgery that was performed involved cutting his sternum, I think, open and inserting titanium bars to prevent his chest from collapsing. And for them to schedule that only a month before his wife is to give birth means it was a dire situation. So to say that she's pregnant and in a vulnerable health situation, he is also, although you can't see it, it's not the type of thing you see, but he said on a video that his heart was pumping only at about 50% what it should be pumping at. Secondly, this was during COVID. And another thing that's odd that no one's really noticed is that he says if she leaves, he won't be able to be here and he won't be able to make calls. What he's talking about is post-surgery, and I've known friends. I know a friend who had this surgery, and I've seen online people talk about this. You can't even raise your hand to make a phone call, okay? And she has no reason to walk out. I mean, there's obviously a problem, but what she's doing is hitting him at his most vulnerable time. But it looks like he's just kicking back and enjoying a cigar. There are many, 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 many things like this. Another thing that I just found out yesterday, I was like, I wonder how long you have to be married to get alimony, which is an important thing for someone who's deciding to bolt. The answer in the state of Texas is 10 years. And the smartest way to file for divorce would be to do it before the 10 years because the 10 years includes up till. So she filed at the end of the 9th year. So she could say, oh, no, I wasn't doing it for that reason. But it really looks like a setup. And Kyle is going to say, women can't do 9D chess. Believe me, I believe that women can be quite smart and quite crafty. It's not 9D chess to set up a man in the way that Steven Crowder was set up by his wife, Hillary. And the real question, as Grace said, is in our society, can women ever be held accountable for anything? Can women fail? Or is it always that they have some sort of problem or some sort of mental illness that a man has to, or their father or their husband or someone, it's always got to be someone else's fault. And I actually think to say that women should be able to be held accountable and should be able to find solutions to problems is actually a feminist point. And anyone who says that women can't and a pregnant woman can't do things, and I know that both Stephen and Kyla have actually taken quite moderate positions on this, probably the two most moderate positions of all people I've seen react to it. Yes, they see this, but they nevertheless, even though they see there's a lot here we don't know, where they don't know something, they skew against the man. And I think they have no grounds to do so based on the evidence. And all of it points to it being skewed against her. One major point here, because I've gone through a similar thing in my own life, is that I think you may have a problem here that's on a very, very deep level. And divorce is a problematic solution to that problem. My conjecture is that Hillary Crowder had serious impediments when she got married. I don't know that, but it seems to be implied when Steven Crowder says we're going to release all the mental health stuff. I think she had a problem with this. I think she got overwhelmed. And it's really, really hard for women. And I think this is a fault in our society, especially traditional women, to admit that they're over their heads. And it's really easy and really tempting for them to just blame the spouse and play the victim. And I don't think we're doing men or women any favors by automatically assuming that the man's to blame. I've encountered, I haven't been on the internet that long, but I've encountered so many young men who are saying a relationship with a female, short-term, medium-term, long-term, is a nightmare. And there's becoming an increasing argument, an increasingly rational argument, which I did not think was possible, that really it's not worth it on any level to deal with females because you're setting yourself up like Steven Crowder got set up here. I don't think Steven Crowder regrets having his children. I don't think Steven Crowder regrets what he got into. But you can see how the argument can be made. And women need to start making the other argument that we will be held accountable. We're not going to do this to men. Maybe that's not what's going on here. I don't have omniscience any more than anyone else. But situations like this do happen. And this was not about going and getting the groceries and how many cars they had. This was a woman leaving her husband and leaving her responsibilities, never to come back while it looks like groceries. I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your intro statement, Grace and Ben. So yeah, it looks like our mods are back in the chat there. Sorry, everybody, but I've only got so much access right now to the platform, which is a ton. But we're going to kick it over to the other side here. Who would like to start on your side?
I don't care. Do you want to go first or want me to go first, Kyla?
6 of these. Go ahead and pick Ryan.
All right. Destiny's going to take the floor. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. And floor is all yours, Destiny.
Yeah, sure. So I think that there are kind of like 5 things that I would focus on for why I would call the situation here pretty clearly abusive from Steven Crowder's perspective. And I think I would have to be presented with an insane amount of contrary evidence to override these 5 points. So the first point is her ability to leave this situation, both the marriage and immediately, like the actual balcony, is insanely compromised. She has a serious health event going on right now, which is being pregnant with twins. And from what we've heard later, Steven apparently has the ability to completely cut her off financially from her means of existing. So it sounds like she's probably not working right now. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it seems like through the course of this, one reason why I would say this seems abusive from Steven Crowder's end is he seems completely unwilling to work together to try to figure out a compromise to the problem. He refuses to try to compromise on the car thing. When she wants to take the car, he doesn't let her. When she offers to call a friend, he tells her instead that she needs to call an Uber. It seems like he doesn't have any desire here to actually work together with her to figure out a fix to the problem. For the third part, I feel like his tone is needlessly derisive, contemptuous, and insanely aggressive. With multiple statements like, you give up so easily, you have no respect, the only way out of this is discipline and respect, I don't love you, I've never received love from you, become a wife worthy. These aren't statements that you make to somebody that you love, that you're trying to work out a problem with. These are statements you make when you're trying to tear somebody down and attack them and leave them psychologically weak and vulnerable for you to exploit or manipulate. These are not things that you say to a wife that you love, who you genuinely hope or sincerely wish to work out any of your problems with. The fourth thing is, feels like in this fight, something you commonly see in abusive situations, is he's not really trying to figure out how to solve the problem, but instead sometimes he even seems spiteful or like he's wanting to get even with her. When he points out that he is going to be locked at home away from the car, rather than expressing that as an actual interest and saying like, hey, I'd like to be able to do something, I'd like to be able to go to the gym, like maybe we can work out a different plan for the schedule, he says, feeling some constraints, and then he starts to list the things he can't do. Feels like he's more interested in kind of like throwing jabs and getting even than actually figuring out a solution to their problems. And then for the fifth thing, the fact that when she tries to leave, after saying multiple times that she wants to take space, she literally says, I need space. She's unable to leave. Even when she gets up to leave, he gets up, chases her inside the house, gives her the leash and says, walk the dog, put on some gloves and walk the dog.
All right, we're going to kick it over to NotSoErudite. Thank you so much for your opening statement there, Destiny. And just want to remind everybody in a live chat that all of our guests are linked in the description. So if you like what you're hearing from any of our speakers, you can check them out in our description. So NotSoErudite, I think you have still 9 minutes on the clock. So the floor is all yours.
Great. I probably won't use that entire amount. Basically, what I'd say here is we saw a 3-minute video of an interaction where clearly unhealthy things are happening, right? I think if you take the video just at face value, Stephen looks like a giant raging POS. He looks like an awful partner. He's not supportive. He's uncompromising, very, very controlling, says some pretty nasty things. Doesn't look good for Stephen. The issue that we have to remind ourselves in the context of this conversation is the reality that we're seeing a 3-minute video, which means taking a really, really strong opinion one direction or the other on he is clearly an abuser and always has been in their relationship, or he clearly is not an abuser and never has been, is to me just kind of insane. They have a 9-year marriage. We're seeing 3 minutes of it, right? All of the outside context that's going on around this video. For example, is this interaction the worst interaction that they've ever had? Is this actually one of the best interactions they've ever had? Would completely skew how abusive or not abusive we find the individuals. I think a lot of times when we see really toxic interactions, which Stephen did a good job of outlining, many of Crowder's toxic interactions with his wife, we immediately want to jump to using the abuse word, and there are abusive behaviors within this. The issue is that that's not enough to establish abusive pattern. It's also not enough, though, to just say it's clearly not abusive. I think that that's just a pretty extreme claim, and I think we just need a lot more evidence to really, really clearly make one decision or the other about the dynamic of their entire relationship.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for those opening statements. We can kick it up into open discussion. I do know that there's a couple other screen shares that we wanted to get to, so we'll get to those as they come along. Just remind everybody in the live chat, we are doing a Q&A at the end of all of this, so if you have a question for any of our speakers related to the subject, not attacks against our speakers, they're here on their own time, we want to respect them. If you got questions for them, please fire it in the live chat for super chats and we'll read them at the end. All right, so open discussion. We'll kick it over to the yes side to kick off our open discussion. Thanks, guys.
We're the yes side, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I start this just by saying, so the opposition seems to be saying, look, we can't say that he is an abuser, but we can say this displays abusive behavior. That was Erudite's point, and then Stephen followed it up by listing what the toxic behaviors were that he saw. Okay, he said she was unable to leave the situation, both the marriage and she was immediately unable to leave the situation. That's not true. He lets her go. He lets her take the car. He doesn't physically threaten her at all. The cutting off of her access to finances was an allegation made by her family in a statement that was full of lies, and she was completely legally free to leave the marriage. So to say that it's toxic behavior in the sense that it's controlling, that's not true. That's just flatly not true. The first example you gave was that he does not control her. She is free to leave both the marriage and immediately that situation.
Okay, yeah. So on this first point, I think we have to have a bit more of a sophisticated understanding of what it means to control somebody and to control space. There's a difference between saying like a person physically is not capable of leaving an area because the other person is going to fight them to the death on it versus trying to impose some level of physical intimidation to manipulate the person from leaving the area. I would say that when she's clearly uncomfortable, she clearly says she needs to get space, and she's trying multiple times to get space. For her to get up and go to the door, and for Stephen Crowder to get up and chase her, is him trying to physically impose himself on her to keep her from leaving. Now, whether she's ultimately allowed to leave, I don't know how long after this she did leave. I don't know if any of us know the answer to that. I would say that that is like a hallmark of an abusive behavior, is when a partner clearly wants to put space between you and them, and you physically impose yourself to make them unable to do so.
When did he physically impose himself to keep her from being able to leave? He never did.
When she got up to leave, he gets up to chase her and hands her the leash and tells her to walk the dog.
But he doesn't
That's not
stop her
preventing
from
her.
going anywhere. She walked right by him several times and right
She
out the
didn't. She
door
came-
and
she
right out
came-
of his life.
After he handed her the leash, she came back to the balcony to walk the dog.
So she walked the dog? She didn't walk the dog. She left. They had a
By
discussion
her
in
own
the
admission,
kitchen and she
she
left.
said she fled.
Nobody's
she never
saying
came
that
back.
nobody's saying that she walked the dog. What we're saying is that every time that she physically moved around, he would get up and essentially insert himself physically in spaces as she was trying to.
Okay,
leave.
but you're inaccurate. He did not physically prevent her from anything. You could say he psychologically did.
Can we replay the video, just the ending part, the last like 20 seconds? We can watch it.
Yeah. I know what you're talking
sure
about.
can.
Okay, give me 1 second. This,
Hey, and while you
this
get that up,
Substack page
just-
sucks so much.
Just going to remind everybody that we are going to be uploading these to our podcasts within 24 hours of having these discussions. So definitely check us out on your favorite podcast forums. We're going to review the video again. So yeah, if you want to keep your screen share up and carry on.
Okay, so at the
Let's
end
establish
here,
a couple things before we watch this. Do we all agree that
Okay.
she wants to leave the house at this point? Do we agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
We agree that she doesn't want to walk the dog, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Stephen Crowder doesn't want
Nor
her to
give the dog his medication.
Sure. And Stephen Crowder doesn't want her to leave the house, correct? Mm-hmm. And Stephen Crowder does want her to leave, walk the dog and give her the medication, right? These are our two conflicts, right? It's her leaving the house.
Yeah,
and
I
walking
think
the
we all agree on that.
dog. Okay,
Yep.
cool. All right. So then let's watch what happens here.
Okay.
Day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife.
As a
I said
wife.
Hillary, come on now.
I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage.
She says she doesn't want to engage. She says she wants to go. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
where
just
is
keep
he
playing.
blocking her, Stephen?
She's not
Where
yet.
is he
We're
physically
still playing.
intimidating her?
We're still playing.
Where?
We're still
Where?
playing.
She's free to
Just
leave.
wait.
We're
Just
getting
wait.
there. We've all watched the video.
So let's keep watching.
I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed?
Now he gets up. He tells her to put on
I'm-
gloves because he doesn't want her to leave. Okay.
Okay,
But she's
he's
trying
not
to leave.
physically imposing.
I did.
this.
Okay, just keep watching. We're watching till the end. We got 20, 30 seconds left.
Okay.
Yeah, let's finish it up and then we'll talk.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything.
She fully leaves, and he's still
He
sitting.
follows after her, Stephen.
Correct. He does. That's what I just said. Thank you.
Correct.
So he
Yes.
follows
He's
after
not
her.
blocking her. You said.
Okay. Well, then
she
let's
was
see what
not
happens.
Free to
Sure.
leave.
Let's see what happens.
Okay,
So he
okay.
follows her to the door. She's trying to leave. What happens next?
She has the keys in her
Said I
hand.
love you. I'm committed.
Okay. And what happens?
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves.
I need to.
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves.
He
Are you
brings her
committed enough
back
to do those
outside.
things?
He brings her back. She freely came back to get the keys.
but-
I
He
guess
did.
she
He
we
wanted
don't-
to chase
we
her, and
don't-
now she's picking up the leash to walk the dog.
She walked right by him, picked up the leash, and then she goes back out.
So,
You can see.
Stephen, you are wrong. There is no physical intimidation here. You
He
could say
wa-
there's psychological, but there is no physical.
He literally
blocking
physically
of
moves.
her.
I didn't say he blocked her. He brought her back
You
out
said
here.
physically. You can say
I said-
psychologically,
no,
but not
psychologically.
physically.
Psychologically would be him shouting at her, right, verbally. But he gets up to the door to physically impose against her to bring her back out here, right?
Let's
Keep
finish
you play to the
Where
end.
do you?
Let's finish up these
Okay.
last
Sure.
20 minutes so we can stop the screen share.
Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm going to just.
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the gloves? Don't you
She
think-
walks
think that-
right by him.
Right by him again.
And now, yeah, she walks right by him, but now, one, we see Steven go inside the house, and apparently this video says that they get angry and angry, and he says, I will fuck you up. So him chasing
Okay.
her into the house, why not sit here and let her leave? The fact that he followed her into the house shows that he's trying to be physically imposing to get her to do what he wants her to do.
Following someone is physically
end the
blocking
screen share,
them from
please.
Oh,
leaving.
yeah.
Yes.
Continuing a conversation is
When a
pursuing
partner is
someone
trying-
to continue a conversation.
Yeah,
That's
when a
not legal.
partner, hold on, this is an opinion.
No, it
this
is
ju-
not.
sure,
No.
this isn't an opinion. This is a fact. If somebody's trying to leave and you're getting up to follow them, to continue a conversation that they're trying to disengage from, yes, that's trying to use a physical imposition to force them
That's
to follow
physical,
through.
Stephen.
Yes, it is.
It's not
If you're
physical.
moving-
He
if
was
you're
not
moving-
physically
No,
blocking
you're
her.
trying to continue the
you're-
conversation. Yes.
If you're moving your material, so say me and Nick were having a fight, and I said, you know what? And actually, I'll give it for you guys. He says, you know what, Kyla, I need some space. And so I don't grab him, but I follow him around the house. I keep trying to pressure him to come back in and do things within the household. There's a physical element to that. Because if I wasn't being physical at all, if I was just being psychological, I would stay in this room. And while Nick walked away, I'd be yelling at him like, you effing whatever, and then maybe threatening him to try
So
to
would it be abusive if you followed him into another room to pursue a conversation? Would that be you physically abusing your husband? Physically preventing
nobody-
him?
Hold on, no one said there was
Yes,
physical
that's
abuse.
exactly
You
what
said
Stephen
physical
said.
prevention.
Hold on.
He said
Physically
he was cutting
preventing you
off
from
her
leaving.
ability to leave.
Okay.
Stop
I'm sorry.
lying
Okay.
here.
I think I've triggered you with the word physical. So we can try to come across
No,
some
don't
other
say
word.
that.
Well, you're getting
you were
triggered.
wrong. Don't say I'm
No.
triggered.
He wasn't verbally abusing her. He wasn't psychologically abusing her. He got up to physically insert himself into an area to control what she was doing. Now, I can't
In order
say...
to have a conversation, you have to be physically in the area, Stephen.
No, you don't. He could have shouted at her from the balcony. He could have let her
He
go.
was-
So it's abuse to
in-
pursue someone who's leaving and say, "Hey, can we talk?"
It
That's
is an-
in the
abuse.
doorway.
That's
She walked
physical
right by
him.
abuse. Give me a break.
Let's let Grace
Okay.
speak for a minute here. Sorry.
Oh well, I'll let Stephen go. But he was in the doorway. He was physically in the situation. She walked right by him, and then she walked past him. Then she got in her car and left, like they said, like she herself.
You
said.
don't know how long after this did she get into the car and leave?
Well, nobody knows that.
Then why
but
do you
that's
keep
what
saying
she
that? I don't know
says.
why you keep saying that. Because
she-
she might have
well,
left.
she did-
She might have left 12 hours later or the next day. Did she even leave this day? I don't know why you keep
Okay,
saying
but now
that.
it's just
Well, let's
conjecture
let
based
her-
on the
No,
video.
Whoa.
Conjecture.
Hold on. It's not conjecture based on the video. You're the one that's bringing up, oh, well, look, she left. That's your conjecture. I'm not saying that at all.
No.
What? Yes, that's your
No,
conjecture.
look at the edit. It's her edit, obviously, because she's the only one who would know this. She puts an edit at the end, and it says, after this, she fled the home. When he said, I'm going to fuck you up, and I know exactly what he meant. There has never been any physical violence. He meant, if you do this to me, if you leave and do this to me, I am going to make your life hard.
Sure.
That's what he meant
Okay,
by that.
that's fine.
But that's
wait,
her edit.
Hold on, that's
Steven,
fine.
that's
That's
her
fine.
edit.
That's fine.
Can you
That's
speak?
fine. But you guys saying she left immediately after, you don't know that. We're just talking about what's
It
in the
says
video.
right there. Go back. We're
so-
gonna do this.
okay, hold on.
It says she
I-
fled the
if I could
home
bridge.
after he said
Yeah,
that.
I can bridge.
Let's let Erudite in here, okay?
All Stephen is trying to point out is that we don't know the time from when the video ends to when she physically exits the house and gets in the vehicle. There's a lot of conjecture required to assume when she leaves. So you guys are saying she just left immediately, but it sounds like what happened is that she went inside and then she felt threatened if we take the text at face value, and then she ran away from him while he was chasing her, right? So like we don't fully know the details of how she left is all he's trying to point out. Whereas you guys were saying she's leaving right there. See, she wasn't physically intimidated. We don't know how soon after that video ending to the point of when she actually exited the house. That's
It
all.
was
that's being
clearly
said.
within the same interaction, though. Whether
You
it was
don't
a half
know
hour
that.
later
How
or
We don't
45
say that's
minutes
not
later.
clear.
You have no
That's
idea.
not
She
clear.
might have left
She
10 hours
says
later.
that in the video. Are we on the same planet?
They got angrier
Where?
and angrier.
Show
Then
me. Wait, okay.
he said,
Wait,
I'm
okay, hold on.
fucking
Show him. Show him.
Yes,
We can watch
both.
the
We're
video
gonna.
again.
Yeah. Tell me where it says she left
The
immediately
last
after.
too few frames. She says it.
Let's bring up the screen share again. We'll
All right,
try
give me
to
one
keep
second.
everybody, if everybody could prevent themselves just for a few minutes from injecting, and we'll really pay attention to what's happening in the video. I know there was a lot of commentary going on the last time we watched it, so let's just see if we can focus on what you guys are highlighting there. So,
Okay, I'll
whenever
just
you're
play the
ready
last
with
couple
screen share.
seconds.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you can just be disciplined about it. You go, no, but I love you more than life itself. Okay, put on some gloves. No, but I love you more than life.
I love you.
Just go to the last like 5
I
seconds.
need you. I need to
Walk the dog.
Steven,
Are you committed enough to do those things?
I,
Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just.
Walk the dog. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dog's take? No, you take Betty.
Okay.
Okay, so just to check that we're on the same page, can we all agree that at some point Hillary leaves the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the
and we
end of the conversation.
Okay. We don't know specifically when she left the house, though. We don't know
Yes,
like,
we
the time
do.
or anything.
After he, by his own admission, screams, "I will fuck you up," at his pregnant wife, Hillary, who then flees their home. You're telling me this could be days later?
It might be, I'm just saying it might be later than
That's
that.
ridiculous
If you want, we can
Let's
say
send the
that.
screen share.
Sure. If you want, we can say that she leaves the house within 30 minutes. If you really want that, it still doesn't seem.
I'm not.
It still
I'm
doesn't
just saying
change.
this is all part of one interaction.
Sure.
And the end of it,
Sure.
she left.
That's fine.
obviously
Sure.
true, and
Okay,
you're denying
sure.
it.
If you want that, that's fine. But it still
No,
doesn't change
it's
any.
true.
Okay.
It's true.
We don't know the length.
I need
All
to
he's saying
hold
is
on,
we don't know
moderator.
the
I have
length.
to be able to finish a thought without him interjecting. Okay.
Yeah, let's let Stephen finish this
Okay.
out there, everybody.
If
we
you
can.
want, we can say that he left, or that she left 30 minutes later. That's fine. We can grant that, but it still doesn't change anything that I said before. You trying to physically impose yourself to keep somebody from leaving, and then being able to leave, doesn't mean you didn't try to do that.
Yes, it does. He did not physically impose himself to keep her from leaving. He did not block the doorway. He was sitting for most of it. She had the keys in her hand. He did not physically prevent her from leaving. Now, you can say psychologically he was doing that. That's fine. But physically, no. And we know that even her propaganda denied that there was ever any physical abuse.
Okay, have you guys ever worked with like cattle or animals or anything like that? Ever watched cattle dogs work? Okay.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about vaguely.
So you know how they'll push cows along almost exclusively without touching them, right? They'll just get like big and kind of put their body pressure in different locations.
Yes.
Yes.
So are you saying that cowboys are psychologically coercing cows to move, or do you think they're using their physical bodies as like kind of like physically coercing cows to move in different directions? So using their presence, their size, maybe the loudness of their body. Would you agree to that? Can we
Yes,
call
of
that
course.
physical? Can we call that physical coercion?
Yes, with the threat
Okay.
of violence. With
Great,
the
so
threat of
that's-
violence, and that's how those cows learn to move, because they are bitten by those dogs.
Sure. So that's what we're talking about is obviously Stephen isn't biting them, Stephen being Crowder. But what we're talking about is when he's getting up and he's moving into her space and he's a larger physical being, even though he's not physically touching them, there is an element of physical coercion and pressure there.
No, there is not. I know what I would do if I wanted to block her. I'd stand in the doorway.
Right. He lets her walk right past him. Like twice.
He gets up and follows her into the kitchen. She is the alpha in that position. That
She's
situation.
the alpha while
she
she's
is
oh, sorry.
exhibiting power by taking the keys and moving in the direction of
Yeah.
the exit of the house. Obviously.
Okay.
And he's following her.
Okay. When you are trying to placate somebody who is clearly the aggressor and you're trying to create space, you're saying, I love you, I just want to leave, I need space, and you're withdrawing into the home and somebody else is pursuing you, there is no world in which the person fleeing there is perceived as the alpha. She's clearly
Yes,
trying to
she
create
had the
space.
power.
Let
She
me
was
finish
saying,
my
"I'm
sentence.
outta
Let me
here."
finish my sentence. She's
Sure.
clearly trying to create space. She's clearly uncomfortable with the situation. She's clearly trying to placate him from getting increasingly angry. And as soon as she actually manages to take physical space by going inside the house and not having the continued exchange outside, he physically gets up and follows her to continue the conversation that she clearly doesn't want to take part in.
Yes, right. She doesn't want to take part of it in something. Are you saying that if someone doesn't want to take part in something, there's no such thing as like the silent treatment, that withdrawing can be a power move? Are you saying that? And leaving a situation with no resolution can't be an aggressive move?
Are you saying that it's never an aggressive move to chase and pursue somebody who says they aren't comfortable having a conversation?
Yeah, chasing someone with like a gun, yes.
So if you're not chasing them with a
Pursuing
gun,
someone,
so if you're not
he's the
pursuing
one who
with a
wants to
weapon-
continue to engage.
Yes, but
let's
she
let
doesn't want
Stephen-
to.
He's not threatening violence. He's applying pressure to her with his physical presence to convince her and coerce her to stay rather than respecting her wishes, right? He's not grabbing her because I'm going to guess that he probably doesn't physically abuse her, right? But he is using his physical pressure to impose. Yes, getting in somebody's physical space, even if you let them move past you, is physical pressure. It is physical
It's
coercion.
psychological pressure. He's using his tone of voice. I'll admit that.
Does she
The
have
idea
a
that
right?
he blocked her and that she wasn't the aggressor here is ridiculous.
Does she have a
Ridiculous.
right to not carry on that conversation?
Legally, does she have a right to?
No, morally. Does she have a right to step away from that conversation if she feels like it's too heated?
There are situations in which someone needs to resolve a situation. Yes,
Did
there
it
are
feel like
sometimes
there was
when someone
something
doesn't
there?
have a moral right.
Does it feel like in that case that there was something that required an immediate resolution? Or could this conversation have been put off?
Yeah, it was right. And I'll tell you something else about that little video. I'm not saying
pivoting. I'm asking a very simple question. Does she have the right to walk away from that conversation? Say, I'm not comfortable continuing this conversation right now. I want to take space. Does she have the right to do that?
Did she have a right to walk away from their marriage?
We're not talking about
forever
walking
and then
away from the
attack
marriage.
him
Just
from,
a space.
from
You're
afar?
pivoting. It's a conversation.
You're pivoting.
She did not have that right.
She did. So you don't think she had a right to walk away from that conversation?
Not. Temporarily it could be understandable, but she should have come back, and there's no evidence that
We
she
didn't
did.
have any
And
evidence.
She's been attacking him from afar ever
you-
since then.
You try to make it sound like she just wants a little bit of space. She says, I need space, I need time, I'll be back when I'm back. Does somebody have a right when you're married to them to just say, I'll be back when I'm back, I'm taking space? No, that's why it was unresolved. That's why he's saying, well, we at least have to work something out here. She does not have the right to do that.
Depending on the severity of the fight, you absolutely always have the right to take space. Of course.
No, you do not. There are situations in which you have to stick. You have to resolve something. I'm not sure in that situation, but I'll tell you what else this looks like. It looks like the perfect setup. She played to that camera, and she used things that will look a certain way in court and in the public eye, and you could tell he's totally confused by what she's doing. I think this was a planned thing. I can't prove that, but it looks a lot like it. She's
Can I just go
triggering
back
him
to...
right to the camera.
Okay, I'm not going to go there with you yet. Can we just go back to, does she have the right? So you guys agree that if she needed like a 2-hour timeout, that would be okay. You guys agree to that?
Yeah, you could take some space, yeah.
But if she
not
say-
if you've been doing this for 9 years. No.
But you don't know if she has been. You don't have that
don't know.
context.
Well, you were saying, is this an absolute rule? And my answer is no. It depends on the context.
I'm saying
Okay,
that in
great.
general, there are circumstances where maybe not, but I would generally side with somebody saying, I want to take space. That's totally fine.
Right. Do you guys think it's fair that when you're taking space, especially in a heated argument, you might not give an exact time of when you'll be back? You might just say, I'll be back when I'm back. And that could mean 2 weeks, but it could also reasonably mean 2 hours, 4
Okay.
hours. Would you guys
What
agree to
about
that?
if
Hold on. I just need you to answer that. Would you guys agree that her in a heated moment saying, I'll be back when I'm back, doesn't necessarily imply that she's
2 weeks
gone?
would
First
be
of all, she's
unbelievable
not
if he's
heated.
coming,
She's
if he's
not
going through
heated.
surgery in 4 days. That's an unbelievable insult to him.
I'm going to ask again. Do you guys think, we can quibble about whether she's heated or not after, if somebody is heated, it's reasonable for them to just say, I'll be back when I'm back and not give a firm deadline? Is that
No,
reasonable?
I do not. I think that's
No,
that
you
could
said
it could
12,
be abusive.
you said if it's
It could
2
easily
weeks.
be
No,
abusive.
that's not reasonable.
Okay, so it's never reasonable
It's
to
a
just
power
say,
move. It's
I'll
a
be
power
back when
move.
I'm back.
No, I don't think that's reasonable to do to your husband for 9 years who's going in for surgery and who has an extremely stressful job. I do not think that's reasonable.
So
No.
you are obligated at all points in time to be
No,
there.
you're changing it. You guys are changing it. You're
Hold on.
you're being
Grace just said
sneaky
that
here.
you're not. Hold on. There's nothing sneaky. All we're trying to do is figure out if you have a right to take space when you are uncomfortable in a situation. And it sounds like both of you guys.
Of course
are
you do.
I
Of course
think
you
Grace misspoke, and she's because you guys are playing this game
Not
because
if you
you're more
said not-
sophisticated. So you at first said, "Is it always right to do that?" And we said no.
Is
and
it
then you said,
okay?
"So it's never right to do that." And she said she bit for your little trick.
Well, because all
why don't we
we
stop
need-
with the bullshit and just
Yeah.
say there are times that when yes, and there are times when no.
Cool. That's all we're trying to say. There might be
No,
times.
it is not. You're trying to play games.
Can I finish a sentence? When you don't let me finish, it's because
Steven,
you know
you're
your
not
point
a
is weak.
victim here.
Let's let
I didn't
Steven
say I was a
talk,
victim, but I'm
please.
saying that when you don't let me finish,
you
it's because
did.
you know you have a weak argument, right? Which is fine. I understand.
Wrong.
Your
That's
argument
not
is
true.
insane. Yes, it is. So we're just trying to say that it is permissible, at least sometimes, that if you are feeling stressed, if you feel like you're emotionally compromised, to want to take space in an argument. Is it
Of
okay
course.
every single time? No. But if it's okay at least some of the time, you don't have the context
Right.
here to say whether she's in the right or the wrong. So I would probably side. I think it's fair to side with the person that wants to take a little bit of space. That's totally
Why do
fine.
we have to say, if we don't know, that we have to side with one side or the other? Can't we debate that? That's what this debate about.
Because-
I'm not saying I know everything about it.
Because Steven is the one that is aggressing here. So you would probably need
No.
to hire...
No.
Let me finish a sentence. Stephen is the one aggressing here. So similar to how an affirmative defense would work in court, where if you kill somebody and you say it was self-defense, you're already admitting a wrong that like, okay, well, I'm killing somebody, but I had a really good reason for doing it. Stephen is the one that's pursuing somebody that said they need space. Generally,
She is
when
the one
somebody
with the
says
keys
they
and-
need
Let's-
space, I'm
let's
just going to keep
let
talking
him
until I finish. Generally, when somebody says they need space, you ought to respect that. Unless you have a higher threshold of evidence saying, no, when they're trying to say they need space here, it's an abusive strategy. And I would actually go one step further. If they are saying, I need space, and they're using that as an abusive strategy, to properly resolve that, you would either have a third party or a therapist present to do so. You would never try to resolve it on your own.
She's the aggressor. She's making the decisions. She takes the keys and she says, I'm leaving. That's her aggressive position. He's the one saying, please don't, please stay.
How is you
She's
saying
the one making the decisions?
Yeah, but making a decision isn't always aggressing, right? Me making a decision isn't the same thing as aggressing on somebody.
Well,
me saying I'm taking space isn't aggressing. It's a boundary, and it's inherently a de-escalation. Taking space, and anyone who's gone to marriage therapy 101 knows that taking space is the most important way to de-escalate conversations. Her getting space is a de-escalation necessarily.
No, it is not. It can be an escalation. Are you two familiar with what's called the silent treatment that people do?
Yep.
To others?
Yep.
Is that a form of aggression? Maybe we're just misusing term. We're using that is an aggressive tactic.
It's not aggressive. It's avoidant, which is generally thought of as the
well,
opposite
whatever.
of aggression. Now, could it be? Yeah, should it be obnoxious? Sure. Could it be abusive? Even? Yeah, sure.
Okay,
but
all right, let's use
aggressive
abusive.
or
Let's
aggression?
use abusive.
Sure. We can say she might be being abusive as well, but I need more context to know that. However, I know that it is.
Here's a piece of context. If I can talk for a little bit, I know you're offended by that.
We'll let you speak for a bit here.
He said to her, Hillary, you always just give up. Now, that wasn't just right then. You can tell there's been a massive history of her giving up, and she is an avoidant personality. If you wouldn't want to call that aggression, I have no problem with that. She has a clear tendency to avoid conflict and to give up. And that can be a problematic personality type.
I'll fully grant you that being highly avoidant can be abusive, right? This is what neglect is, right? Neglect is like maximal levels of avoidance, but neglect is not aggression. And you guys were saying that Hillary was aggressing first. Saying something is maybe done something that's toxic in a dynamic is not the same thing as aggressing.
Oh,
in the case of her, well, it really matters in this case because we're saying, well, we're saying
let's let her
in
finish
this
up, and we'll
case,
kick it back over to you.
Great. Steven is aggressing. Steven Crowder is aggressing first. And she is trying to get space. If we're taking the video with the level of nuance that Steve and I are trying to take the video.
Men tend to be more aggressive. Women tend to be more avoidant. Yeah, okay, but both can be obnoxious in context.
No, we're not. The argument isn't whether who's being obnoxious or not. I don't know why we're...
Well, what are we asking? Is Steven Crowder innocent of what?
We're not even asking if he's innocent. We're just asking
of
if he's exhibiting abusive behavior.
That's what we're actually doing. Is he innocent of being a man? Is he guilty of being a man? And the answer is yes, he's guilty of being a man. So am I. You're trying to get out of it, Stephen, but I'm afraid you're going to get caught too. It's not a crime to be a man. It's not a crime to be bigger than a woman.
It's also not
a crime to raise your voice.
It's not a crime to be... No one said any of these things were crimes. It's not even a crime to be abusive. Literally, no one...
Or leave your house. Or leave your house and never come back.
Yeah, it's also not a crime. Yeah, it's not a crime to leave your spouse. It's not a crime to take the car and fucking drive away. It's also not a crime to stay in
a woman. It's not a crime to be a woman, but it's not a crime to be a man.
This is brave. Very brave takes here.
Yeah, nobody... I don't think anybody's saying otherwise.
Yeah, you are. You're implying that no matter what the situation, I'm just saying you two both do leave some room for nuance, and you're saying, okay, but you generally skew way in the favor of this woman. And I don't see any evidence why you would do that. I admit that we're on both sides conjecturing, but you're like, we shouldn't make judgments about this. But let me go ahead and call him a piece of shit. I just saw your video.
Nobody has said we shouldn't make... Nobody's saying we shouldn't make any judgments about it. You probably just shouldn't
Why do you make them instinctively with no evidence?
I'm just going to keep talking until I finish my point.
Let him finish.
Nobody is saying that we shouldn't make any judgments whatsoever. There are probably some judgments that we can make. It looks like, for instance, they've been to therapy. It looks like, for instance, they've been fighting for a long time. It looks like, for instance, they've got disagreements over the fucking car. We can make some statements about what's going on. There's nothing wrong with that. The only statement that I think me and Erudite, or at the very least I'm opposed to, is absolutely saying, in the totality of the relationship, Steven Crowder is the bad guy, Hillary Crowder is the good guy, or vice versa. That's it. In this one situation, Steven Crowder is clearly exhibiting abusive behavior. Hillary Crowder might be exhibiting abusive behavior, but we need more context to say if she is. We don't really need much more context to say if Steven is. Again, it's almost never okay to pursue somebody that's saying they're trying to take space in an argument. That is arguably an abusive behavior, especially if you're doing it by moving your body around to follow them around when they've said they wanted to disengage from an argument.
All right. Well, Steven, you mentioned two other things that proved that he was displaying toxic, abusive behavior. You said he was completely unwilling to work together with her. When he said, Hillary, come on, let's work this out. Hillary, you give up so easily. And she was the one leaving and not engaging while he was trying to continue the conversation. Secondly, you said his tone was derisive. And the examples you gave for his tone being derisive were, you give up easily. You have no respect. The only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said that those are ways of tearing somebody down psychologically. That is clearly not abuse. That is called holding somebody accountable for the promises they made to you, for the standard they agreed to be held to. That's not abuse. That's not misusing the other person.
My door is not. Hold on, I'm sorry. 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, take your time. We'll kick it over to you. Right?
Sure, I'll toss in. I guess that's a little bit more towards Stephen. But Grace, how do you feel about him saying, I don't love you? Do you think that that's in any ways a reasonable criticism or something that's going to be productive in a conversation with your wife to figure out your problems?
I got it.
I believe what was happening when he said, I don't love you, is she kept saying, I love you, and he was saying, well, you've never shown love to me. And I believe he was frustrated. He said, oh, I don't love you. I do not think that's abusive. I don't think it's intended to tear her down. I think he's saying, let's cut
I just
the
asked
bullshit.
if it's him giving valid criticisms. I didn't ask any of these other things. Is it because you said him saying, you need to be disciplined, respectable. These are all examples of him just giving legitimate criticisms to his wife. Is saying, I don't love you, a legitimate criticism to your wife?
Well, I mean, I think you have to view it in the context of what he was saying. Just alone, it seems harsh. But if you see what he said right after it, he said, because you've never shown me love in this relationship, by showing your love instead of just saying you love me. So it's valid
Totally
within
valid.
that context.
Wait, wouldn't that imply then that if he doesn't love her, then he's not showing her love either in that? If that's the context of it, wouldn't that necessarily imply that he's basically saying neither of us show each other love ever? Why would he say, I don't love you after complaining about her not showing him love?
Why do you make that leap? He is saying you have never manifested your I love you, I love you, I love you in any actions, or at least to such an extent that he's saying, I ask you to do these minor things and you don't do them. And then you tell me you love me. And he's pointing out that that is abusive. What is wrong with that? He may be,
well, he's not,
he
he's
may
not,
be wrong. No, why are you
out.
running this debate, Kyla? Why are you in charge? You and Stephen are not in charge of this debate. Ryan is.
Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Can I respond, Ryan? Or
Yes, so to say, you can finish up your point then, and then we'll kick it back over to the other side, of course.
Are you done, Ben?
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay. So the question is still, I don't love you doesn't seem productive. In fact, it seems evidence of Stephen's point that he's not trying to find compromise. He's not trying to work on things. I don't think saying things like I don't love you is helpful in any way to a conversation.
Okay, can I push back on that?
Sure
Okay.
thing. Let's go.
If you've got two options that you feel like, because this is kind of end game, let's just say that he's aware this is kind of end game. He's getting the hint that she's pulling something here, because he does act very like, what do you mean by that? Okay. So he's saying, now you're saying, is him saying, look, I really want to have this out. I've never seen any love in action from you. And she's taking the keys and leaving. Which of the two of those are engaged? I want an answer to that. Which of those two are going to engage and which one is bolting?
She's leaving the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is it abusive for him to say, like, well, let's have it out?
He doesn't say, let's have it out. He
Well,
says,
that's what he's
I
saying.
don't
He's
love
saying-
you. You're not showing me love. You need to be a better wife.
Well,
Do your
couldn't
wife
it be
be-
that he doesn't love her anymore? Is that okay for him to say, if that's honest, the honest
If that's
truth?
true, then doesn't that undermine every single thing you've been saying, and that he's the one that's essentially leaving? Doesn't that kind of like coincide with him hiring the divorce lawyer first and everything? If he really truly doesn't love her anymore, and even if he does not love her anymore, then why would she stay and have the conversation? It seems like she should just leave.
But he then explains what the problem is. She doesn't do anything.
Do you think that, here's a question, do you think that it's ever constructive in a fight with a wife or significant other or any family member ever? Do you think it's ever constructive to say, I don't love you?
Yes. If someone is using the I love you thing in this manipulative way, does a man have to be perfect? He explained it right after that. Maybe yes, like, okay,
Nobody
so
says he has to
he
be
says,
perfect.
she says, he's basically saying to her, I fucking hate this tactic that you do of saying, I love you, I love you. It's bullshit because love manifests itself in action. I believe that's true. Do you guys believe that's true? That saying I love you and not doing anything or not showing that love